Welcome to Bodacious Estate Conversations, the podcast where we skip the polite small talk and get straight to the real story about handling a loved one's property. From unexpected challenges to the messy emotions nobody warns you about, I bring you unfiltered stories, practical advice, and clever shortcuts from people who've been there and the professionals who know the way. If you want honest answers, bold strategies, and the confidence to take control, you're in the right place. Here is your host, Kasey King.
All right. Thanks for tuning in on today's episode of Bodacious Estate Conversations. I'm excited to chat with someone who played Division III college baseball, earned a black belt in martial arts, and hit top performer in his first month on the job. Now he's an account executive with the top 10 Goosehead Insurance franchise nationally. A mentor, loves helping people succeed, staying active, and of course, spending time with his significant other. Let's give a warm welcome to Shane Hulbert. I'm so happy to have you here today, Shane.
Thanks so much, Kasey. I'm so happy to be here. Very excited to talk and to get ready, to really get into this here. So thanks so much for having me.
Oh, I love it. So today we're going to be diving in to one of the trickiest parts of handling an estate, the insurance. We're going to cover the biggest surprises people face, things everyone should know, real life situations that Shane navigated, and the most common mistakes families make when a property sits vacant. Stay tuned until the end for Shane's number one tip that could save you frustration and hours on the phone. All right, Shane, let's dig right into it.
Let's do it.
So, when someone inherits a home, what's the first thing you wish they knew about insurance?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that, kind of first what we should talk about is obviously when something like this happens, right? And we're dealing with somebody who, has passed away and now there's a house that we don't know quite what we're doing with it yet, right? What's the first thing that people should do, right? Obviously, you're going to have to grieve. There's going to be some things that are, a lot of moving parts, a lot of moving pieces. I think the most important thing to realize is that you have time, right? Most insurance companies, they have clauses for this. They have, specific guidelines in the documents that you don't have to call the day after somebody passes away and say, "Oh my God, I have to figure this out," right? There's plenty of time to do that. So I would say, the number one thing and the first thing that you should do, obviously, is take however much time you need, right? And then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to reach out to your insurance agent, right? And the first question that, you're going to ask yourselves and the insurance company is going to ask you is, how long is the property going to be vacant for? Right. And in most cases, Kasey, people don't know. Right. I mean, this just happened. I'm sure, it was something that was unexpected. And, how long is the house going to be vacant? The answer is probably going to be, I don't know. Right. So I think that kind of bridges into, the vacancy clauses that we have in insurance. Right. And those vacancy clauses are going to say about 30 to 60 days. Now, what does that specifically mean? That specifically means that, as long as the house is, in whoever's name and it's vacant for 30 to 60 days, generally you can kind of leave it. Right. Now, if you're over that 30 to 60-day mark, or if you don't know, like, hey, I'm not going to sell the house right away. I'm not going to get a tenant in there right away. My family members aren't going to get in there right away. Then your insurance agent is going to talk to you about, the need for a vacant policy. And then you're going to kind of take things, from there, and kind of go through that process with your agent on what that looks like.
Yeah. What's the difference between a vacant policy and just a typical homeowner's insurance policy?
Yeah, fantastic question. So vacant policies cover, a lot more in terms of things that would happen when you're not living there, right? When you're living there, obviously, if there's a concern with water, what are you going to do? You're going to go turn it off, right? If you're living there, your house, could it still be vandalized? Yeah, but is it less likely with the lights on and the cars in the driveway and everything else? Absolutely, right? So when we're looking at vacant policies, we're really looking at, vandalism and malicious mischief, are the things that are going to be covered that normally might not in a home policy, right? So if people are spray painting, right, the house, God forbid, or they're breaking windows or they're vandalizing it, those are kind of the big ones that are going to be covered. Also, you never know what causes certain things, right? If there's a house fire and you live in there, chances are you might know what caused the fire. Oh, I left the oven on. Oh, my wood stove is the sole source of heat. But when it's vacant and the heating's not even on and it catches on fire, there's a little bit of a difference when it comes to a vacant policy in terms of, okay, let's cover this with the vacant policy because the vacant policy is going to give you a little bit more wiggle room when it comes to what the specific claim is.
Right, right. So one thing that I see with vacant homes is pipes bursting because you're not keeping it at the same temperature you would if somebody was living there during the winter time. Here in PA, we get some pretty cold winters, and it could lead to pipes freezing and bursting. So is that something that could be covered if it happened?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's, generally covered on a standard homeowners insurance policy is what we like to call sudden and accidental, right? So if something suddenly or accidentally happens, chances are it's pretty much going to be covered when it comes to pipes freezing. In terms of a vacant policy, vacant policies can be as dumbed down or as extravagant as you make them, right? So when you're having the conversation with the insurance agent, it does become, hey, this might be one of my concerns. Can we make sure that this specific policy covers it? And really, at the end of the day, if you're able to kind of customize coverages with the insurance agent, you can have something like pipes bursting or freezing covered. Of course, if you want the vacant policy to just cover, vandalism and fire and wind and hail as just generally, you can. But if you want to get into the nitty gritty, if it'll be vacant for a long time, if you're planning on selling it, you definitely are going to want to explore those coverages specifically with the pipes and things of that nature as well.
Sure, that makes sense. So what's a big surprise that people face when they're handling like the insurance?
I would say, I guess the biggest surprise would be something happened and it wasn't covered, right? This specific situation happened to me and a neighbor, and theirs was covered and mine wasn't. And I thought I had a standard home policy, and what's going on, right? That happens all the time. Like we see claims get denied left, right, center all the time. And I think it really comes down to understanding what your policy is. Right. I mean, no one insurance policy is going to be the exact same. Your policy is not going to be the exact same as your neighbor's. Maybe that's why yours is cheaper, or maybe that's why yours is a little bit more expensive. Right. So I would say, in terms of surprises, there are a lot of coverages that are neglected, right? If you call, a 1-800 number at a direct insurance company, what's their goal? They can only write one product, right? And I'm not calling State Farm out here. I got plenty of colleagues and friends that work at State Farm. But if we take State Farm, for example, if I call you at State Farm, you can only write State Farm. So you're going to do everything in your power with that policy to make sure that you can win the business and insure that person, right? So I guess the advantage of kind of working with somebody like us is we have multiple different companies. So we're going to make sure that you understand each coverage can add X, Y, and Z coverage. Whereas, a direct company is just going to say, let's just make it as basic as possible so we can write you with this company and win the business. So I think that's like kind of an air of caution as well when you're kind of shopping around for insurance, is make sure that whoever you talk to in terms of your agent really runs you through what the coverages are and what's covered and what's not. All of us in the insurance industry know what is covered on a home policy and what's not covered on a home policy. I guarantee you over 50% of clients don't, because they're just not very well explained, right? So I would say, if you're shopping for insurance, if you haven't looked at your policy in a really long time, call your agent, figure out, hey, what's covered in what situation and what wouldn't be covered, just so there aren't any extreme surprises and you're not in a really bad situation going forward.
Yeah, I'm definitely included in that 50% for sure. Yeah, even if I pulled my policy out, my eyes would immediately glaze over. So I would have to have the conversation with you to fully understand it. I run a local real estate investor meetup, and every once in a while I have guest speakers on, and I had an insurance adjuster come on, and the big takeaway I got from, well, not the big, but one of the takeaways I got from his talk was that you shouldn't say something was done by an animal. And at first, I wasn't sure what he meant by that, but then he talked about a story where a client had something like their siding looked like it was chewed through by a rodent or a squirrel or something. So when he first called the insurance folks, that's what he said. Like, it looks like a squirrel chewed through it. Then when the person came to actually review it, they're like, oh, that's not what happened at all. Well, the insurance wouldn't then cover it because he had already said that a squirrel was the cause, even though it wasn't the actual cause. He got put in a bit of a pickle for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I would tell you that just like in life, honesty is the best policy, right? If you don't know, you don't have to say anything. If you know for a fact this is what happened, of course you want to be honest about it, and whether it is, whether it's covered or not, the truth is the truth. But we do see that all the time. People will call in and they'll say, "Hey, I think this is what happened," or "Hey, I ran over this thing in the road and I think it might have fallen off the back of the truck I was following, but I don't really know." So I would avoid that, right? I mean, the job of the insurance adjuster is to come out and figure out what happened and why. Your job isn't to guesstimate it, because if you do, like you were just saying in that situation, it can put you in a really bad spot. I mean, your claim can get, denied in 2 seconds. And I think that kind of wraps a little bit back into the advantages of working with a broker. Not even us specifically, but a broker in general. When people have something happen, right, to their house, to their car, liability wise, what do? They call their insurance company. Now, if you call the insurance company directly, I'm typing what happened, I'm filing that claim. If you call a broker, our job is to be the liaisons for you for the insurance company. If you call me and you say, "Shane, my roof is leaking," I'm not going to say, "Okay, hold on, let me call Travelers and tell them you need to file a claim." No, I'm going to send out a contractor who I work with. They're going to give you a free estimate. We're going to compare that estimate with your deductible. We're going to see if it makes sense to file a claim. If it does, we're going to call Travelers, right? So I say that as an error caution too. Even if you don't work with a broker, ask your real estate agent. Your real estate agent has contacts with contractors, with plumbers, with HVAC companies, right? So uh, I think that's the biggest mistake and the biggest misconception is, if something happens, I got to call my insurance company. No, you got to call a friend or somebody that, is in that kind of area, or a broker, right? Because we're not going to file it right away. And then figure out what the best case is going to be.
Right, right. So I think, like, for me, if my deductible is, let's say, I don't know, $1,500 and it's going to cost $1,600 to fix, for sure. I'm not going to call my insurance provider. But what would be another scenario where it wouldn't make sense to file a claim?
Awesome question. Great question, Casey. So here's the truth. Here is our rule of thumb that we live by. We live by twice your deductible. Nowadays in the insurance industry, and I'm sure people listening to this and you and me, right? We see our premiums are going up, right? Auto, home, everything's changing, everything's going up. My record's clean. Why is it happening? Right? The reason is just because that's the way that the market is right now. I mean, the market's up almost 30%, right? So what happens when you file a claim? You file a claim, your rate's probably going to go up. You file two, it's definitely going to skyrocket. And if you file three, not only is your premium going to be absolutely insane, but it's going to be almost impossible to find insurance in the standard market for another couple years, right? So we say twice the deductible. We recommend higher deductibles now. We haven't in the past years, but we do now. Right. We recommend, I would say, between 2,000 to 2,500 on probably properties that go from $200,000 in coverage to, I'd say, 5 or 600,000. And then once we get into about over 600, maybe we explore three, four, $5,000 deductible. So you're right. If you have a $1,500 deductible and the contractor comes out and tells you it's going to be 1,600, you better pay that out of pocket, right? But if they come out and they say it's going to be 3 grand or four, I would probably explore filing a claim at that point. So the general rule of thumb is going to be twice your deductible.
So, is there a pattern to when the claims are filed? So, let's say I filed a claim 5 years ago. If I have to file another claim 5 years later, is that going to negatively impact me, or like, does it fall off at some point in time?
So it depends on the company, right? I say most companies are going to go back on house as 5 years, right? So if you have a claim October of 2020 and October of 2025 comes around, the claim's going to be gone. It's going to be off the record. It's not going to show up anywhere. It's not going to affect you negatively. Now, if you have, one or two or three within a 3 to 5 year period, they're all going to be on there, right? So, if a tree falls on your roof, what are you going to do? You're going to file a claim. Absolutely, right? But if you have water damage the next week, I'd probably say you're going to want to pay that one out of pocket, right? Just because you don't want to have those on your record. So homes, it's generally about 5 years. Some companies are three, right? So I, kind of reach out to your company and say, "Hey, how long do you guys follow claims. Most people don't know. Same with the auto, right? Most companies on auto are actually 3, but some do go back 5. That goes for tickets as well. If you get, pulled over by a police officer and you get a ticket, those tickets generally follow you about 5 years most of the time. And I did have a question yesterday, Kasey, when I was presenting an insurance policy. Deductibles, just to kind of make it clear, it's not like health insurance. Right? It's not like you pay a set amount of money, you reach your deductible, and you're good. No, it's per occurrence. Tree falls on your house, your deductible's 2,000, you're paying 2,000. Water damage, you need to file another claim, you're paying another 2,000. So it's every time you file something, you pay that same deductible.
Interesting. I did not realize that.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay. Well, that's good to know. Can you walk us through like a real life situation where you helped a family kind of navigate their insurance during that estate transition?
Yeah, I absolutely can. So, like I said, in terms of the first question that's asked, for example, somebody calls me and I say, "Hey, how long is the home going to be vacant for?" Generally, people don't know. Hey, I might sell the house. I might let my sister live in it. I'm not quite sure what we're going to do. Our family's in a really tough time. That's why I'm calling to figure out what we're going to do. Right. Now, if it was, the property was handed to you in a will, obviously it's going to go through probate. That's going to take about 9 months. In that case, it doesn't really matter how long it's vacant. We're going to write a separate vacant policy anyway while you're figuring things out because it's going to be in probate for so long. Maybe the property was in a trust and there's no probate. Maybe it's a little bit of a different conversation. But generally, here's what it looks like. Hey, how long is the home vacant? I'm not sure. Okay, hey, why don't we write a vacant policy in the meantime until you figure out what you're going to do? This is what it's going to cover. This is what it's not going to cover. Do you want to add anything additionally, anything you might be worried about? And then what happens from that point is we would write that vacant policy under the name of the estate of, right? And then basically that person would be responsible for paying the premium. Now, if that question is, hey, how long is the home going to be vacant? Well, Shane, we're going to sell it immediately, right? We're going to go to Kasey and we're going to sell the property, and we are ready to just get the property off our hands and never deal with it again. I'm going to say, okay, so you're thinking what? 30 days? If they say yeah, generally we could leave it. You know what I mean? We could leave it the way that it is. You notified me that, hey, it's not going to be vacant for that long. I'll probably notify the company, and it's going to depend company by company. But normally I'd notify the company and I'd just say, hey, look, they're in the process already of looking to sell it. Is there anything that we necessarily need to change? They might request the death certificate. They might change the occupancy, but sometimes they could leave that policy exactly the way that it is. And then there's not a whole lot you'd have to deal with because the mortgage company is obviously still paying the premium and kind of X, Y, and Z. So I'd say, if we were to kind of bullet point it, it would be reach out to the agent, tell them how long it's vacant, go over which policy specifically you're going to do, or if you're going to leave it the same. And then obviously you're responsible for paying the premium, whether it's the mortgage company or yourself. And then if you do sell or the occupancy changes, all you got to do is reach back out to us or your insurance company, and then we'll either write a different policy or cancel it if you're selling.
Yeah. I love I love how you make it easy to handle. Like, for somebody trying to navigate it on their own, I personally, I wouldn't have the patience to do it. So being able to just reach out directly to your broker and have the conversation and you be able to advise, the best path forward. Um, yeah, I think that speaks volumes.
And of course, it doesn't have to be a broker either, right? You could be with a captive insurance company. You can still call them. They can still do the same thing. Every insurance company in the world can write a vacant policy. So you don't have to specifically be with a broker. Just kind of want to make that clear that you just call whoever your agent is and have the conversation.
Well, I know you do a lot of like sponsors. Do you have any events coming up that you'd want people to know about?
You know what? I just had a big one that was yesterday, unfortunately.
Oh,
In
you
terms
missed it.
of events, though, I know that obviously I do a lot of stuff in Pennsylvania, in Maryland, and Virginia, right? I'm kind of all over the place. I might have to kind of give you a list, and maybe we could blast that out. I know that I'm going to one at Eagle Title in Annapolis, December 2nd. So that's a big party in Annapolis, Maryland. As far as like other events, I don't specifically think I have anything planned yet, but when I do, we should absolutely get together and kind of blast that out as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we'll put it in the show notes for what you've got coming up so that, yeah, people will have that info available. So, where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Bowie, Maryland. It's like 15 minutes from Annapolis, 20 minutes to Baltimore, 20 minutes from DC. Kind of like, central in that area, Maryland. And then, I went to college at Penn State York, one of Penn State's branch campuses. Like you said, fortunate enough to play Division III baseball, and I've been there for gosh, like 5 or 6 years now. I do still work in Maryland, and actually, I'm getting ready to move back here next April. So, kind of coming full circle back to where I grew up.
That's exciting. So, being an athlete, and obviously you're super charismatic. So, what from your childhood kind of led you into the path that you're on now?
Yeah, great question. I remember kind of briefly talking about this with you when we were trying to set this up, and I was like, "Man, no kid grows up wanting to be an insurance agent, if we're being real, right?" I think the one story I could come up with, and the only one that I really think about, is in 2019, I totaled my dad's car. Okay, I ran over a car engine. I was okay. It was like midnight, and I couldn't see. Okay, and I totaled the car. And I did not think anything of it at all. The only thing I remember, and this contradicts what I said earlier about being honest, so be honest. The cop came and he was like, "What happened?" And I was like, "It was sitting in the road." And my dad was like, "Tell them it fell off a truck." And I was like, "No, dad, what's going on?" So, just, all in all, I think I didn't realize the impacts that a claim makes at the end of the day. Obviously, I knew that it sucked. I totaled my dad's car. I owed him some money. I didn't have a car to drive around with. But then I took this job, a year or so later, and I ran my dad's claims history report, and his rate was high. And I was like, "Well, dad, if you wouldn't have gotten in an accident," and he was like, "That was you." So I didn't realize until I got into the industry how big of an impact claims really make. So not that I kind of went to bed at night dreaming about being an insurance agent, but it was funny running that report and calling my parents and being like, "Well, stop getting in accidents," and then blaming it on me. So, it does make a difference in terms of claims. But hey, that was 2019. It's 2025. It has fallen off. They can't be mad anymore.
That's hilarious. Oh my goodness. So, okay. So, when did you start playing baseball? Did you start at like the early age? Is it 6 years old or 8 years old? Is that the beginning?
I was 4. I started playing T-ball when I was 4 years old, coach pitch, kid pitch, travel ball, high school, college. I play men's league now, right? I can't give it up even though I'm tired and getting old. But yeah, my whole life that's pretty much all I did.
Yeah. And what position do you play?
I was a catcher my whole life. Actually, no, I played like shortstop when I was like 6, but I started catching when I was 8 and caught all through college and God, like 15 years.
Whew. Okay. That's heavy on your knees, right?
Yeah, I still do some squats to kinda stay in shape, do some band work to make sure that I don't have to get anything replaced. So far, so good, I'll knock on some wood here, but, yeah, I have my days where I get out of bed and I'm like, "Dang, that was a lot of years, a lot of innings."
Yeah, it's good. It's good though. I feel like it's great to have that drive and like want like it's just something that you love so much. You can just push through and make it happen.
Absolutely.
So obviously you're a driven person. I mean, like being a top producer in your very first month on the job, being competitive athlete, I feel like in my experience helps with that drive, that competitiveness, that need. And then obviously being charismatic and funny, helps you in the world of sales. So what is it like? What's your earliest memory that you can think of that kind of all came together and helped you in a positive way?
Wow, that's a heck of a deep question. I don't know. I think that, man, I mean, I went to DeMatha Catholic High School, my first 2 years, and then I went to Archbishop Spalding High School my next 2 years, right? And going to a Catholic high school and kind of growing up in that environment and in the area where I lived, I truthfully feel like DeMatha and Spalding made me into the kind of person that I am today, right? So I think that the schools that I went to, the people I was surrounded with, the family I was blessed and fortunate enough to grow up with, and of course the experiences and everything else I learned along the way, I really feel like shaped me into who I was, right? And then I got to college and I took all that, right? I took the personality, I knew who I was at that point. Like I took kind of who I am and what I've done. And, between getting my black belt and being a captain on so many teams in school, I was able to take that into college, right? I was a four-time captain in college. I learned all of that teamwork and kind of became a mentor in college and obviously worked really well with the team. In college, like my sophomore or junior year of college, I joined a Graham Fellowship program for entrepreneurial leadership, and I was on the board of that. So between, my love for sales, I guess now, kind of probably started my sophomore or junior year of college when I kind of got to head this entrepreneurial leadership program. And I was involved in so much. I mean, I gave tours to freshmen. I was a freshman orientation leader. I mean, by the time I was a junior in college, all I wanted to do was talk to strangers and get people to love Penn State and be around as many people as possible. And ultimately, I think, when I did my internship at Goosehead, fell in love with the sales environment and obviously really enjoyed the insurance industry. And, my colleagues and owners and everybody else here are amazing. And they remind me of the people that I was around when I was in high school and college. Right. So I think that everything kind of builds up and leads to one moment, right? And I think that through all the experiences that I had and the people that I was surrounded with, kind of shaped me into being able to have a successful career this early on.
It's amazing to listen to your story. So, and you are definitely successful today by anybody's standards. But listening to your leadership background, do you think that this is just another like trajectory forward? Do you think that where you are today is just going to multiply and develop into something more?
Absolutely, I do. I mean, I just started. I We just hired one of my buddies I've known for 10 years. And, fortunate enough that he, killed the interview and got in here and he sits behind me now. And I'm getting to sales coach him. Right. So I'm a little bit of a mentor for him already. And I've only been in here, a little bit over a year now, but they're kind of given my background, trusting me to mentor and trusting me to sales coach. And the plan, when we get back to hiring here in early 2026, if anybody out there wants to work with me, call me. But when we start to when we start to hire early in 2026, the goal is to take me and a couple other, more tenured agents into some of those more, mentor-ish type roles. And then of course the ultimate goal, right after that is going to be there's going to be an opportunity within our Goosehead agency to open, an extension of our team in a different location, right? So my ultimate goal, my ultimate plan is to sales coach and mentor here as long as possible, and then work with my agency owners to hopefully create an extension of our agency in somewhere warm that's not Maryland or Pennsylvania, that I can kind of run and have my own team and kind of move forward from there. So I think that's still long in the future. I have a long way to go, a lot to learn, a long, room to grow. But I think in terms of the ultimate, kind of game plan, I love mentoring and coaching and hopefully managing something as great and successful as this is one day.
Ah, amazing. So, do you think your love for coaching came from a teacher early on, like from your school?
Yeah, I mean, I had phenomenal, phenomenal teachers at DeMatha and Spalding, and even better, shout out Beth Brennan and Alan, at the Graham Center for Entrepreneurial Leadership. I mean, I was always surrounded with professors and teachers and heads of programs and organizations that, I learned a lot from. Right, I gained so much experience from everybody, just like I gain experience from my agency owners now. It's all about the people that you surround yourself with, and the more you can absorb and the more spongy you can be with all the things that you learn over time, I think ultimately kind of bring you to that point. So I couldn't call out specific people other than Beth and Alan. I love you guys, but as far as professors and teachers and everybody else, I mean, I was grateful for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. Being able to say, I'm obviously not the smartest person in the room. Let's try to absorb, some of this amazing knowledge that I'm surrounded by. It's surprising to me, but it does take a special person to be able to do that. So, kudos to you.
Thank you. I'm really trying to take advantage of every opportunity. Unfortunately, Penn State York is one of the 12 Penn State branch campuses that's closing in 2027. But before that, as soon as I graduated, I became a volunteer assistant coach. I became a recruiting coordinator for college, right? So every opportunity that's thrown my way in any sort of leadership development role, I'm all for it.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so we promised folks, if they listen to the end, that you would give them your number one tip for saving time and frustration. So if you could think of, in the world of insurance, what would that tip be?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you guys for staying till the end. The number one tip I think would be to put it this way. Everybody has an insurance policy, right? And everybody's insurance company rate is different. Allstate, Travelers, Nationwide, Progressive, you name it, right? Most people will either leave their policy the way that it is, and they'll slowly increase over time until one day you realize it's insane. Or you could be one of those rare type of people that call Progressive and then call State Farm and then call Allstate. And how long does that take you? So long. Takes you so long to call those different companies. What I would recommend, right? Of course, I'm a little biased, right? But I'd recommend calling a broker, right? Call us at Goosehead, call a broker in your area. What brokers do, and in most states, Maryland and Pennsylvania specifically, we don't fee for our services, right? There are a couple states that we do. It's not very much, but in terms of Maryland and Pennsylvania, which I'm sure is our core audience here, if you reach out to a broker, we have 120 carriers nationwide that we can shop. It takes me an hour to do that, right? I can shop Progressive, Allstate, Travelers, Liberty Mutual, Nationwide, you name it, right? And I can do that within an hour, and I can call you back and say, hey, this company's at this price, this one's at this price, this one's at this price. So I would say reaching out to a broker saves you time, saves you energy, saves you money, of course, at the end of the day. And obviously, if you do work with a broker, you have, added benefits like our service team, for example, me as your point of contact instead of calling a 1-800 number when you need something. We have a claims department. We work with, different types of contractors and plumbers and everything else that we talked about a little bit earlier. So I think the number one tip is to find a broker. If that's me, awesome. If it's somebody else that who is a broker, I think it saves you so much time, energy, and hassle. And then if we could, Kasey, real quick, if we could circle back to the estates and everything else, I think my number one tip for that, right, would be one, take your time, right? Take a couple days, take a week, whatever it may be. Understand that there's a leeway period. You don't have to let people know right away, right? So take your time, I think is the number one tip. And then number two, reach out to your agent or reach out to a trusted professional to just figure out how to navigate it, because nobody knows what to do at the end of the day except for the people that are professionals in the industry. And we're equipped to kind of help you guys walk through the process and help you handle it.
Right. That's so good. Well, this has been so much fun. So what's the best way for folks to get a hold of you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you're looking for a free quote, you can go to shanesellscoverage.com. That'll bring you right to my landing page. You just put in, your name, your phone number, your date of birth, and what you're looking for, and that kind of allows me to reach out to you right away. I would say that's probably the number one way if you're just looking for a quote. That would be awesome. Otherwise, my phone number, which I'm sure you'll put in there, in the notes or whatever, is 410-267-3653. And then of course my email, which I'm sure, Kasey will attach somewhere in there as well. So, phone, email. I'm on all social medias. I do a lot of reels, do a lot of podcasts. So, look me up on social media. I promise you I'm not hard to find. So yeah, and any way you can. I mean, text, phone, email, social media, my website, anything at all. Google my name. I'll show up somewhere.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Shane. I know I got a lot out of this. I'm sure our listeners will too. I really appreciate you being here.
Absolutely, Kasey. I really appreciate the opportunity and the time. I love you and everything that you do. And obviously, I look forward to staying in touch and continuing our partnership as well.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that wraps up another episode of Bodacious Estate Conversations. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back with more great stories and tips soon. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bodacious Estate Conversations isn't just chatter. It's about learning, taking action, and finding solutions that actually work. If today's episode resonated, share your thoughts, subscribe, leave a review, and pass it along to someone who could use a hand. More stories, smart strategies, and practical guidance are coming in the next episode. Don't miss it.